Welcome to another episode of Back to Life, Stories of Resilience. I'm your host, Danny Bader, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and a strong source of support for you as you travel this wonderful journey called life. We bring you powerful perspectives from people of all walks of life that have overcome challenges and traveled their own path of resilience to come out the other side and create lives of happiness and fulfillment. You're sure to be inspired and get some great takeaways that you can begin to apply in your life to create more happiness and more fulfillment. Because that's what you're here for, right? Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of our Back to Life podcast. And Josephine Atluri, thank you very much for being a guest here. I know the audience is going to enjoy your story, your thoughts, your insight, and most importantly, what you can offer them to move from stress and overwhelm to a lot more calm and collected state. So how are you, Josephine?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Danny. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. No, when I was contacted about potentially having you as a guest and I checked out your website, that was one of those no-brainers. I thought that this will be great. So tell the audience a little bit, tell our listeners kind of that elevator speech really of, what got you to where you are right now? And along that journey, what was the biggest struggle for you?
Yep. So my elevator pitch is that I help people overcome adversity to find joy. And I do that based off of my own struggles through infertility. It all began with a life-threatening illness that my husband had when we were dating. And then that led to having to use IVF to have children right away, and it didn't work for many years.
Mm-hmm.
When it finally did, we did lose our twins at 17 weeks, and it was at that point that we pivoted to international adoption. Later on, we tried it again, and I was able to carry twins. And then many years later, we saved up and we worked with this amazing surrogate who helped us carry yet another set of twins, and that's how we came to have 5 kids. And I like to joke that it is because of the 5 children that has led me onto this path of helping people with their mindfulness, with their meditation, so that, like myself, they could be the calm amidst the chaos.
Yes, the calm amidst the chaos. That's a great bumper sticker. And I love, your slogan of just bringing people to more joy, right? I think that's
Absolutely.
Ultimately why we're here. So your husband is good now, healthy?
Yeah, that
Great.
happened right when we were dating. And a lot of that sort of is what led me to this path. When you, similar to your own story, Danny, when you go through an experience in life where you lose life almost,
Mm-hmm.
and you're at that cusp, you have this benefit of deciding what to do with that opportunity and with that experience.
Right.
And for us, we were able to take lessons from that and learn that life is so precious,
Mm-hmm.
and that every day is a gift. And so that is what has really colored our experience ever
Mm-hmm.
since,
Mm-hmm.
and has allowed us not to take life for granted.
Yeah, right on. What was the lowest point of that? I think so many people out here, we all struggle on life's journey, right? I mean, it's I always used to say it's not perfect. And then Pat Croce, who is guy back here in Philadelphia, very much immersed in meditation and stillness, just a wonderful guy. Used to be president of the Philadelphia 76ers, the basketball team. So had a lot of worldly and material success, and now has gone inward. But in our podcast, he would say, I said, life's not perfect. He said, it is perfect. It's perfect just the way it is, just the way that it unfolds. When we, like you said, when we stop and realize that we're in a really dark, challenging place and we have a choice there. What was the darkest place for you? And I know you and your husband were a team through this, so to speak. But what was the darkest time for you? Do you remember a period where you were just like, oh, man?
Yeah, no, the darkest time, there were many low points in our relationship, but perhaps the one that is most telling for what I'm doing today would be the moment when we lost that pregnancy, that
Mm-hmm.
twin pregnancy at 17 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was, it came out of the blue. We weren't expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
After you hit that first trimester mark, you think you're in the clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the midst of planning like a baby shower and trips and building that nursery. And then all of a sudden we lost the twins, and you go through all those questions of why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening again? And that for me was the lowest. And, I credit myself to be a very positive person, a very optimistic person my whole life. But that for me was the lowest. I remember just sitting in my room in the dark, not wanting to get better and just wanting to stay there and grieve the loss.
Right.
And so many women who go through infertility, they feel a need to just keep going,
Right.
Because it's so time sensitive. But in that moment, that's when I learned the importance of really feeling my feelings and having that full expression of what I was feeling in order to heal myself.
Yeah, I recall we have 3 children. We're blessed with 3 children, Luke, Joey, and Lizzie. My wife, Lisa. Luke was, a good pregnancy, healthy. Joey was the same. And then she had 2 miscarriages in between Joey and Lizzie. She's getting a little bit, older for a woman to have children. But one of them was twins. And I remember the same thing. We went and we had lost one of the twins and one was still alive and then lost that as well. And I can remember the raw sadness, that we both experienced, but even Lisa as well. So, yeah, so I'm certainly glad you moved through that. What was the one thing that got you going again, got you moving? I mean, you've created a great world. You got a great family, got a great business now, helping a lot of people. What was the one thing that got you going out of that?
That's a great question. And there are many things I feel like that came together to help me get through that point. One of them was just this feeling that I wasn't myself and this wasn't how I wanted to operate.
Got it.
And I needed to find a way out of this because it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I'm a planner. I've always been a planner. I used to run an event planning company.
Little type A Josephine going on.
Just a little bit, Danny. And
Double A, right?
And so that actually, I feel like that's what got me out of that low point, because I decided to come up with a plan, and in multiple parts of my life, like getting back to work, distracting myself in that manner, coming up with a new plan of how we were going to become parents, which at this point was now adoption. And so having these new lifelines, as I call them, that's really what propelled me out of that low point and back into life and back into letting hope back in.
Yeah, right. Hope and trusting. That's cool. So you almost planned your way out of it, right? Starting with a kind of a vision to say, hey, very unfortunate here, and we will have children. And here's the next action we need to take to kind of move towards that. Yeah, I think it's so important there.
The points that you mentioned in your book about having the importance of this vision of your life, of your plan.
Yeah. I've heard so many people that have said, just like you kind of said right now, the thing that unhooked you is you're almost outside your body and you looked at yourself in your life and what was going on here. I've interviewed, quite a few people and they've all said that same thing. And I remember, for me going through a dark time too, I just kind of looked and I said, wait a minute, man, this is not the way that it's going to play out. I heard Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx, the women's undergarment. She said the same thing one time. I think she was on, I heard her on a podcast, Lewis Howes, I think, or something. And she was selling copiers down in Florida long time ago. And that was really good business, doing great, making money. And she said she just had that moment where she almost looked at herself in her movie and was like, oh my gosh, this is not the movie that I want to be in. So I think that's such a powerful concept, right? The ability for us to kind of get outside of our situation and see it from a neutral place, maybe where the emotions aren't as strong.
Yes. And that, that's actually what I like to teach when I'm talking to clients about meditation, because you can get into that moment, that same moment, without having to be in this like low point of your life where you're not experiencing what you want to experience. You get to have that perspective just by sitting in stillness and silence in a meditation.
Yeah. So let's get into that right now. Before we do though, because you've introduced your husband and your 5 children, what are their names? What's your husband's name?
Yep. My husband's name is Pramod. My eldest is Jaden, Milena, Mateo, Dion, and Dante.
Oh, great. And what are their ages?
14, 11-year-old twins and 4-year-old twins.
Okay. So everybody listen, when Josephine is going to talk to you now about the importance of disconnecting and being still and meditating and all. You can't say, oh, that's easy for her because she doesn't have any children. Listen, she has a great business, wonderful husband, and 5 kids. So Josephine, what's the history that you have with meditation and stillness? Did you always do it? How'd you come connected to that?
Yeah, great question. And I wish I did have it, especially during that fertility journey, which is why I'm so passionate about helping people who are going through fertility right now to be able to incorporate mindfulness in their journey. Because I would have been able to, I feel like the trauma that I experienced back then would maybe have been handled better if I had the benefit of mindfulness and stillness back then, but I didn't. And so I had a friend who kept insisting, you need to try meditation. And I kept pushing back saying, I cannot turn this mind off. I mean, event planner, constant list, I'm covered in Post-its. Sure. And she just kept insisting. So I said, fine, I'll try an app. And I did. And I was hooked. Just a few minutes a day. And it was amazing, the benefits that I received from it. So, I'm not one to just do things lightly. I decided to level up the meditation game, and I was trying to incorporate it into a company where I was working, a fitness company, trying to incorporate total wellness, which included the benefits of the mind and emotional well-being. And so I signed up for this course in meditation with the full expectation of not teaching. But after that course, I just wanted to spread this message of wellness and stress management and stillness to anyone that would listen to me. And so that's how it all began. I started off doing corporate meditations because I used to be a consultant and I knew what the stressors that they were facing. And it was easy for me to come in and share with them techniques. And then as I started writing my book on fertility, I thought, why not couple these two together? Because this audience totally needs the help of mindfulness strategies. And so that's how I find myself today, helping people who are going through infertility, helping parents, and also still helping corporations.
But your main focus is on helping the fertility folks. That's your, and couples. That's interesting. So let's back up to a couple of things that you said. What was the app that you first started?
Yeah, the app was Headspace way back when. Yep. And now there are a ton of meditation apps, which is great because, everyone needs to find what works best for them.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And, it's interesting. People, we talk about trying to disconnect and be still, and yet we're encouraging them to use apps. But I think that's so important for somebody out there that's like, oh, I tried to meditate before. I can't do it. My mind never stops. It's important for them. You get an app. You got to practice. You got to learn this and you got to get support. So get an app where somebody is going to guide you through this. What I want to know is 2 things really. What was the first value for you when you started to use Headspace and you're like, okay, man, this is good. What would you say are the 2 or 3 things that were really valuable for you?
It gave me an opportunity to really just pause and take care of myself. And, it was just a matter of a few minutes because I was only doing it for 5 minutes at a time when I first started. And so for me, that was the benefit. It was that I was actually able to pause in life and deep breathe and just get the benefits of breathing deeply. So that's how I like to introduce it to people who are on the fence with meditation, is that you only have to do it for a few minutes every day. Just like practicing a new instrument or sport or anything like that. Just practicing so you really create that neural pathway in your brain so that whenever you need to actually connect to that calmness within you, you're able to do it because you practiced. And then, the big thing that I like to tell people is that you're not going to shut off your mind. You're not going to turn off the thoughts. We have 60,000, 80,000 thoughts running through our mind a day. So even the best of the best meditators, they'll have thoughts. But the beauty of meditation is that you're able to have a thought come in, not take hold of it, allow it to float back out, and then return back to your point of focus. And the amazing thing about that is that that's what happens to us in daily life. And so practicing that in meditation serves you well when you go back into life, when you are at work and get distracted by something, but need to return back your focus to your meeting or whoever you're speaking to. Yeah,
we just launched our course Back to Life, and in there we have a whole segment and some videos and all on being still. And we did talk about that so many people think it's just that, disconnection, your mind's going to be totally blank. And it's not what you're saying. And I think it's so important for for the audience to listen to is you're going to have these thoughts, but you're going to train yourself not to go with those thoughts, not to get the emotion around those thoughts, not to get the worry and the anxiety, but rather just to come back to your breath, or to your, a spot that you're focused on, or a mantra that you might be saying. And the key thing, I think, Josephine, you just hit on is it's so good in real life now. When you have a teenager or you have a significant other, a spouse, a boss, a coworker, and the shit's starting to hit the fan, you have the ability just to have that pause before you respond, and I think that's what's so powerful for people.
Yes, absolutely. You are able to be in that moment, and it extends out, because a lot of the things when I'm teaching meditation, I like to remind people are strategies that you can use outside of meditation as stress management techniques. So, for example, the breathing technique.
Right.
When you're in that tough situation and it's not going the way you want and it's triggering you, you're getting overwhelmed, you're getting stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to just be in that moment still,
Mm-hmm.
maybe physically taking a step back, but just rooting into your breath so that you can move from that state of stress, that fight or flight state, into that rest and digest state of calm.
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot here because, and you won't be on the spot because it's what you do. But a lot of, people listening all the time, I get it. Yep, should do it. I see the statistics for it, and the demographics are certainly growing of people who are practicing meditation or stillness or breathing. And it seems to be, some of the research I looked at, the highest demographic of people increasing in this practice, this principle, is around 40 years old, 45 to 60-ish. Have you seen that research that shows that population really starting to get more into meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. As we, especially as you get progress in life, you take on so many more stressors, right? And so there's a need to find a way to just sort of take control of your situation.
Sure. So this is very appropriate timing because my wife, Lisa, and I, we have 3 children, as I said. And, we live in a nice home, 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, nice little piece of property, nothing palatial, but a very nice home. When we raised the children here, we made a decision that we're going to downsize, and we're going to a real cool redone row home in a funky little area. And there's been some stress and emotion with that. There was just a little bit more yesterday when our settlement date was moved from this coming Friday to next Thursday. Not from our end, but from the buyer's end. They had a little hiccup. Everything's fine now. So a lot of stress going on right now. So why don't you just take me right now through maybe a 2-minute meditation, so you can actually, for the listeners out there.
Yeah, I'd love to
take them through it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So wherever you are, just close your eyes and then begin to settle into this moment by taking a deep breath in.
If you're driving, let me just correct you. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Yes,
go ahead, Josephine. I'll be quiet.
And so let's settle in and take another deep breath. And now just allow your breath to return to a pace that feels comfortable and right for you. And begin to witness the ebb and flow of your breath as it's moving in and out of your body. Begin to witness the rise and fall of your chest as the breath enters and leaves you. Knowing that everything in your life outside of this moment remains exactly where it needs to be. Allow everything else to just fade in the background. Use this next minute to just focus on your nourishment and self-care. And on your next inhale, I invite you to breathe in for 3 seconds and then exhale for 3 seconds, keeping count on your own. And as you inhale again, breathing in for 4 seconds this time, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. On your next inhale and exhale, this time for 5 seconds. And then finally, breathing in for 6 seconds, and then letting go of the exhale for 6 seconds. And before we return back to our daily lives, I invite you to call to mind one thing in your life that you are grateful for today. It can be something big, something small, a person in your life. And once you have that gratitude in your mind, on your next breath, breathe in the joy, the happiness that you feel from this gratitude, and allow it to take root within. And as you exhale, send that joy back out into the world. And then just as we began, we'll end with one deep breath in. And let it go. And begin to return back into this moment by wiggling your fingers, your toes, and whenever you feel ready, gently open your eyes. I hope you feel so much better after just a couple of minutes.
At 3:30 Eastern time here. I know you're out in LA. So thank you for that. I'm sure everybody else, that's it. It's that easy, right?
Yeah, it's that easy. When you're focusing on your breath, it's hard to think about anything from the past that may be troubling you. It's hard to think about all the what ifs of the future that you're getting anxious about because you're completely in this moment by focusing on the breath.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you. So my gratitude was the fact that our paths have crossed and we're having this conversation right now.
Oh, I love that. That's a great gratitude.
So thank you for that. So let's do a couple more things here. I want to talk about self-care. So important, and certainly more important now when we're going through all this uncertainty and risk and fear and the stress of political elections and the stress of COVID-19 and is it going to spike again? Are we going to shut down the economy? So that sense of self-care for somebody when the world is a bit out of their control, right? There's a lot of things we can't control, but we still have to take care of ourselves. Talk about self-care for a little while. What else is important besides meditation and how might they practice that?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care is so important. Often we just keep going and then we don't realize until it's gone out of control that we're riddled by anxiety and stress. And so self-care, I like to just remind people that it doesn't have to be this big production. It doesn't have to be this fancy thing. It can be something as simple as listening to your favorite podcast. It can be reading a book. It's just taking a moment out of your day to prioritize yourself and knowing what feels good to you, what works for you, and building up that toolkit, that self-care toolkit, because oftentimes, just like when we wake up in the day, we wake up different. We have different needs every day. So a certain day will require a different strategy from your toolkit because of the extent of that stress. So that's why it's so great to try new things. I always, of course, advocate meditation and being mindful to add that to your toolkit. Another thing that I like to do is something that we just practiced, which was that gratitude practice. When we're able to shift our perspective from that state of lack into a state of abundance, from a state of negativity into one of positivity, it really helps prevent that spiral that we can get into, especially during these times right now when things are so uncertain and so overwhelming and we have zero control over any of these things. It's easy to spiral. But if you can introduce a pattern interrupt, such as one from your thoughts, a thought of gratitude, then you're able to shift that perspective and shift that mindset.
Yeah.
And you're practicing. It's just like anything else. You practice it and it allows your mind to now have a choice as to what to hold on to. So, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more. So we talked about meditation. We know that. Certainly nutrition, right? Eat healthier, exercise, move more. But you just talked about the pattern interruption. And I think you're talking more about the head there, right?
Yeah.
Our mind, our beliefs, our mindset and all. What do you mean by pattern interruption?
Yes. So, when we're going through our day, we have all this self-talk. And the self-talk can be sometimes pretty nasty to ourselves about just critiquing ourselves talk that we probably wouldn't give to our loved ones,
Right.
but we're the harshest to ourselves. And so
Right.
an example there would be interrupting that pattern of thought.
Mhm.
And instead of reaching out for that thought of, I can't do this, whatever it is that you're doing,
Mhm.
instead thinking of something like we were saying before, a gratitude,
Mhm.
that I am grateful for this opportunity that I'm in. And then going from there and thinking of all the other things that are positive, thinking of the things that you can be grateful for, just to shift that perspective.
Mhm.
And so preventing you from continuing that previous pattern.
Right.
And so, that way it's what you're feeding your mind is what
Yeah.
it's holding on to. Right?
Yeah. What's the tip to recognize that? Because as you talked about, our thoughts just, it's 60,000 a day or whatever they might be. And some of them are random, right? Where they're just, we're thinking about brushing our teeth, but we're really not because it's so habitual. But a woman that I did some coaching work and training work with, Pam McLean, years ago, she said a great line: awareness precedes change. What's a tip for people to be more aware of what's that little voice going on inside, between their ears? Any tips for awareness?
Said I'm going to say meditation and mindfulness, because that's what allows you to be aware.
Mhm.
So it's that idea of stillness.
Mhm.
If you're able to just be quiet for a moment, whether or not thoughts are happening, but just being able to be aware, starting with how your body is feeling,
Mhm.
and then progressing to emotionally, how are you feeling? And
Yeah.
then when you start to practice that, you're able to become more aware of everything else that's going on in your life, from your
Right.
body to your thoughts to your mind. And then that is exactly right. In terms of being aware, once you're aware, then you know the steps that you need to take in order to take care of yourself, in
Mhm.
order to make a change.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I always just say unmute too, because oftentimes our thoughts are just, especially when you wake up. I talk to people about the importance of winning those 0 hours, 0600, 7, the early morning hours. As soon as you wake up, that voice is going about your day, about yesterday, about the meetings coming up, about finances, COVID. And oftentimes they're just running in the unconscious, as I said. So you're not even aware of them. You're just going, and they're kind of putting us into a not so positive state. But I'll tell people to unmute. And they go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Just start saying out loud, what's going on up here. Oh shit, I can't believe that person never got back to me yesterday. This is not going to be good. If they shut down again, speakers aren't going to be able to travel." Like, really start to say what's going on up there, because then the awareness sets in and you're like, this thinking is not going to serve me well at all. So how could I think differently about this? As you said, that the challenge and the difficult times in life, they're still there. It's not as if unicorns and rainbows, but it's you're thinking, okay, how do I move past this versus just kind of running that cement or that mud. So I think that's really a good point. But it does come back to a lot of the stillness. Do your kids meditate?
Everyone does in their own different way. So my 14-year-old will ask me to meditate with him when he's getting overwhelmed, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
and then that's like a total mom win for me. And so the little ones, though, I'm always trying to hide from them whenever I'm doing my meditation, but they always seem to find me.
Yes.
And they will just whisper to each other, "Mom's meditating." And then they'll sit right next to me and be still. And so for me, that's their beginning point of meditating.
Yeah.
And then I will use breathing techniques on them as well, and my middle twins, for when they're getting overwhelmed or right before a test.
Yeah.
For them to really just dig in and just reset and allow them to move from that overwhelmed and stressed out state into just a calm place.
Yeah, our kids are starting to do it a little bit more. Joey's out in California, as I said. Luke do it a little bit. Lizzie's at University of Pennsylvania, right? So she's a runner and she has a broken heel right now, and a large academic load. So same thing. I'm just always telling her, I know you're busy today. Take a few time outs in there and just focus on some breath. I think that's so important. I remember years ago, and one morning I was exercising downstairs. It was a weekend morning, and you'll appreciate this because you talked about the kids showing up. Lizzie's probably 2 years old, maybe. She's in her flannel foot pajamas with the zipper all the way up. And I had exercised, and I just sat down against the wall, and I was going to meditate for about 5 minutes, and got my eyes closed. And here she comes in. I hear her, and she's, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing?" At 2 years old. And she has all like white powder from a donut around her mouth. And I said to her, I said, oh, I'm just meditating. And then you got to explain to a 2-year-old what it is. I said, I just sit and I breathe and everything else. And she's like, can I meditate with you? I'm like, I guess. She says, yeah, I'm really good at that. I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. So she does. She sits down. I talk, close your eyes, just breathe, just breathe. And, I'm kind of like opening my eye a little bit to check on her because she's doing it. And it's so funny. But this gets to the point to the people where your mind's never going to stop with those thoughts. We're about a minute or two into it. And I'm thinking, oh, man, she's going with it. So I'm just going to go with it. All of a sudden, I've got my eyes closed and I hear Daddy. And I said, what? And she said, can I have another donut? And I was like, there's a great case in point, right? Where your mind, I said, sure, you're done. You sat for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, something you talk about in the work that you do, and certainly what you support people to be, is stay connected to, what do you call it, your best self? How do you term that?
Yeah, staying connected to your best self. Because what I like to, especially women who are undergoing infertility, and really just everyone in life right now, when stuff is happening to us in our lives, it starts to dim who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We get so wrapped up into what's happening in our lives,
right.
And we tie our existence to these outcomes,
right.
Or these failures, or just whatever is happening. It becomes our source of identity when it really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
We're not our thoughts, we're not our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to remind people to reconnect to their best self. And again, that always, for me, and when what I'm telling people, comes back to that idea of being mindful.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're able to sit in that silence just for a few moments, you're able to hear yourself. You're able to witness how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that moment, just like with self-care, that you're able to understand what's happening to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
How am I feeling? What do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And in those moments, then you're able to remember as well your inner power and your inner strength that you always have within you. It just gets dimmed by life.
So how do you define best self? Like, how would you, the best self of a person is what?
Yeah, the best self of a person is when they are living optimally and following their passions.
Mm-hmm.
And that every day they're being present in the moment and experiencing that day.
Right.
Because, that's all we have. The past already happened. The future isn't guaranteed. So if you're able to live in this present day, fulfilling something of your passion and of your life, then for me, that's your best self in that moment.
Yeah. What else, Josephine, would you say to anybody that's listening here before, we'll wrap up in 5 minutes or so, and then we'll find out where they can, find out more about you or potentially work with you. But what else would you say to people, that maybe we haven't touched on that's part of your philosophy of living?
I would love to leave people with some tips on how to incorporate meditation, because I hear a number of reasons why people don't think that they can do it. And, I was one of those people myself. Sure. And so just to recap, it doesn't have to be long. It can be 3 to 5 minutes every day. Lean into some help, whether that means apps or using free video meditations like I have on my site.
Mm-hmm.
Lean into help so that you're not flailing about. And then you don't have to be in a perfect spot. You don't need that special meditation corner. It can be anywhere, like for yourself, right after a workout. I like to do it in my minivan. I mean, anywhere that I can just sit still, and that you're going to have thoughts. So learning to just allow them to float in, but not holding on to them, and allowing them to float back out. And then, finally is this idea of self-compassion, because, as we were talking about before, we can be so harsh on ourselves, be our worst critic. And that can prevent you from starting anything new because you're just critiquing how you're performing in it. And same with meditation, you're giving yourself talk about how you didn't do it right and you can't do this, so maybe you shouldn't continue. But so that's where self-compassion comes in, and giving yourself some grace and allowing that experience to just flow for you, and always coming back to it and trying it out just for another few minutes every day. You instantly get the benefits, mind, body, soul, right away.
Right.
So
Right.
Those are the tips that I just wanted to share with your audience.
That is cool. All around meditation. I'm going to ask you some other advice on life outside of meditation in a moment, some things you might want to give people. When did you start meditating then, right? How many years has it been?
It's been a number of years now before the little ones. The little ones are they're turning 5 next year. So probably about 6 or so years.
6 or 7 years. Yeah. What would your life be like without meditation?
Oh my God. I'd be a mess.
Good show, right? Is that what we call it?
That would be a mess. As it is, there are moments when it's just so chaotic over here.
Right.
But I'm always able to return back to my baseline.
Right.
And you know what? I wouldn't be appreciative of the moment.
Yeah.
Because as a consultant, as an event planner, I was constantly living in the future for myself and for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally missed out on what was happening right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until meditation that I realized the beauty of life as it was unfolding.
Oh yeah. So you got to help me out here a little bit. I told you next week I have 2 90-minute training sessions with the North Dakota Bar Association. So I'll be speaking with a lot of lawyers. And part of what I'm going to offer them on the path of resilience is this notion of being still and meditation. And I actually picked up an interesting article here as I did some research. It's 7 meditation techniques for lawyers to increase productivity and reduce stress. So do you have any words of wisdom for me as I offer that meditation to these lawyers who are buried in chaos?
Yeah, no, absolutely. People think that they don't have time for meditation, that it will just slow them down, when in fact, taking a time out will actually allow you to increase your focus, because you're basically like almost taking an eraser and clearing the slate, right? And you're able to just focus in. So that way you're focusing on your breath, even just for a few moments. And then when you get back to all that work, that caseload that you have, now you're coming back refreshed and your mind has been reset. So it serves you. It's just a few minutes versus taking several hours where it's just so chaotic and you're running from here to there and you don't really producing as much as you could have if you had taken that time, that few minutes to just clear the slate.
Yeah. I like that, clear the slate with the eraser. I had a woman once, senior executive, and she was talking about meditation and she never did it before. And she was very skeptical of it. And I think she went to a leadership program at Harvard and they talked about it. But she had a great analogy as well. She said to me, if we had a dinner party and all the plates and dishes were dirty, what would you do with them? And I said, I guess put them in the dishwasher. And she said, great, why? And I said, because then when they come out, they're clean and ready to use again. She said, that's what I do with meditation. It's like throughout the day, I take my brain and I put it into the dishwasher and then I put it back in and go to my day. And I thought it was just a brilliant way to describe it. Yeah, it's cool. So Josephine, where can people find you and potentially work with you? What are your products? Who are some of your main customers and clients?
Yeah, thanks for letting me share. So my website is jatluri.com. And on there, you can sign up for a free newsletter that I send out every month that includes a free video meditation. And then all my old video meditations are on my website. So if you're new to meditation, you don't want to try out an app just yet, you can practice the basics with me on there. And if you have a big life moment coming up, such as with infertility, or you need help with parenting, or you're a corporation, you can book me for a Zoom meditation. Now that we're, in quarantine, it's all on Zoom.
Sure.
And we're able to do that. I've done them for a number of sort of self-care events now, which have been great, and birthday parties. And you can also find me on Instagram at Josephine Atluri for daily inspiration. And my podcast, Responding to Life, which basically talks about how, one can be more mindful and positive throughout the issues with any health issues, infertility, and parenthood.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, your podcast, Responding to Life. I love that. What's that? Monthly, every other week? Guests, or you just talk? What's the format for that?
Yeah, it's every week. And, we talk about issues with health, infertility, and parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to people about their own journeys
Mm-hmm.
and how they were able to respond to life in a positive and mindful way to
Great.
inspire the listeners who are going through their own difficulties in life.
Yeah, that sounds cool. You and I are kindred spirits in that
We are.
passion that we have.
Yeah.
And when I get out to LA, we'll grab a cup of coffee
I would love that.
or something when all of this lifts. But okay, Josephine, I've certainly enjoyed chatting with you. And here's the thing. Here's how we'll end it. So obviously meditation and stillness, big part of what you're offering to people, guiding people, supporting people. And that's a good thing. Let's do this. You're going to coffee, tea, glass of wine, beer, whatever beverage of choice with somebody, mm-hmm. and you're never going to see them again. And you know, they're saying, okay, Josephine, it's been great knowing you. We're never going to see one another again. And you have to give them 3 pieces of wisdom that you know to be true. Like when they're off, you go, okay, listen, have a great life. And don't always remember these 3 things. What would they be?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So I'm never going to see them again. The 3 pieces of advice that, that have helped me is mm-hmm. that the first would be about living in the present moment, which we discussed.
Right.
And for me, that's been really crucial in being aware of life and being present for not just myself, but for my family. Mm-hmm. So understanding the idea that mm-hmm. all we have is now.
Right.
And then one of my favorite quotes is from Lao Tzu, which is, when I let go of who I am, I become what I might be. Mm-hmm. And I might have mixed up the W's there, but I love that quote because it reminds people to not be tied into all these notions that they have for themselves, mm-hmm. not be tied into, like we talked before, about their experiences and tying that to their identity. So when you're able to let go of that and letting go of that hopefully in a moment of meditation and stillness, then you're able to really listen. Just be still and listen to what life has to say and how life is unfolding for you. And then you're really able to manifest into what life has for you and what your passions are. Right. So that would be my second piece of advice. And the third would be to, I don't know, just to have fun with it, because often we're just so serious about everything. And when I look at my kids, especially the little ones, they're just living life and enjoying it. And they're my daily reminders to not take everything so seriously and to just be in it and live it.
Yes.
So those would be my 3 pieces of advice.
I love it. I love it. I could not summarize our conversation any better than that. So 3 things. Yeah. Be present, understand that, you have a lot of greatness to move towards, and enjoy this journey. Be like a little kid, be curious, laugh, and do things that you enjoy, right? Enjoy, do things that you enjoy more. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. So Josephine Atluri, everybody go ahead and find her out on social media, on her website. If you're in need of some support, I think you can see now where Josephine certainly could offer that to you. And Josephine, I wish you all the best. I do trust that our paths will cross sometime. And
thank you so much.
Oh, sure. And to everybody else out there, take 2-3 things away from our conversation with Josephine. Start to experiment with them. Be gentle on yourself. And just make sure that you're always moving towards creating a whole lot more happiness for yourself in the moment and living a life of joy and fulfillment, because that's why we're here. So until our next episode of Back to Life podcast, I wish you all the best. And that's a wrap on another episode of Back to Life, Stories of Resilience. Be sure to share this episode with your people and connect with me on my social media platforms. You can also visit www.dannybader.com to get some cool Jackrabbit t-shirts and support the vision to end ALS, as well as my books and my online trainings. So until next time, I am certain the powerful perspectives you heard will inspire you to make some changes to how you think about your life, begin to experiment with some new actions, and create more happiness and fulfillment in your life, because that is what you are here for, right?